revolution a decade later. 1952. The United States explodes the first hydrogen bomb, codenamed Mike. The test takes place at the Enewetak Atoll in the Marshall Islands in the South Pacific. 1512. At the Vatican, Michelangelo's paintings on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel are first shown to the public. 1954. In North Africa, Algerian nationalists begin their successful 8-year rebellion against French rule. And 1999.
Every guy, every offensive lineman that played for the Chicago Bears helped me get that 16,000 yards, and I thank them.
Walter Payton, the NFL's all-time leading rusher, dies of bile duct cancer in Barrington, Illinois. The former Chicago Bears running back was 45. Today in history, November 1st. James Limbach, The Associated Press.
How the controversy over U.S. spying could thwart one big phone company's dream.
Balance your life with dollar signs. Tune into Marketplace Money this weekend for a look at the issues affecting your wallet. Whether it's investing, renting an apartment, or sending your kid off to college, we'll help you navigate.
From APM in New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the global perspective on business and economics. AT&T has been making noises about wanting to expand in a big way in Europe. Both the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg News have been covering speculation that the takeover target would be Vodafone, based in London, but with a long reach across Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. But if this is AT&T's secret dream, there are another 3 letters it has to worry about, NSA. The BBC's Rob Young joins us from London. Good morning, Rob.
Morning, David.
Let's say AT&T wanted to make a play for Vodafone. Why might some European politicians not be in the mood to give it approval these days?
The spying revelations surrounding the NSA's supposed activities in Europe have not only caused something of a political sting, there's also potential damage to businesses as well, because we know, according to documents released by the former contractor Edward Snowden, that Verizon was providing data to the NSA. The suspicion is that other mobile carriers have as well, and various political and regulatory voices are being quoted in Europe as saying that because many European countries have pretty strict privacy laws, there would need to be some kind of inquiry to make sure that any data that was held on European callers would not be transferred to the United States and passed on to any kind of intelligence service.
Because parts of Europe, I'm thinking of Germany in particular, have some very strict rules about data privacy.
Germany has incredibly strict privacy rules. Indeed, the data commissioner in Germany has been quoted in the press as saying that he would take a keen interest in any AT&T dalliance with a European mobile company. Vodafone, which we've talked about, is the number 2 operator in Germany, and so Berlin would have to, like many other European capitals, give approval to any such AT&T deal.
The BBC's Rob Young in London. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
President Obama's pick to lead the Federal Reserve, America's decentralized system of central banking, is Janet Yellen. She'll be on Capitol Hill next week meeting with lawmakers. That's just another sign that the current chairman, Ben Bernanke's term is just about over. Economists and other experts have started reflecting on the Bernanke legacy. Marketplace's David Gura reports.
Ben Bernanke was at the helm during the financial crisis. There were the bank bailouts, the bond buyback programs.
They were starting policies that had never been tried before.
Mitch Abulafia is a professor at the University at Albany. He's a sociologist who spent more than a decade studying how the Fed communicates. He says the thinking was this stuff is so unusual and so hard for the public to understand that
unless we get out ahead of it and explain it in more detail than we normally would, they're bound to misinterpret what it is we're trying to do.
And that's led to what some say has been the biggest change at the Fed under Bernanke's leadership. Carl Walsh teaches economics at the University of California, Santa Cruz.
The impact Bernanke has on increasing transparency, being clear about longer-term goals, is going to be part of his lasting legacy.
The Fed, for most of its existence, was exceedingly secretive. Well, that started to change in the early 1990s, but it really changed during the financial crisis. Politicians and the public began to question the Fed's legitimacy, so Bernanke defended it. First, to Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes.
By tradition, chairmen of the Fed do not do interviews. That is, until now.
Bernanke decided to hold regular news conferences, and he returned to the classroom.
Gee, this is great.
Bernanke gave lectures at George Washington University.
This is what I used to do before I got in this line of work for 23 years.
But what may be more important is the kind of guidance Bernanke and the Fed have given economists and investors. It's more concrete, long-term guidance. The University at Albany's Mitch Abalafia says this move toward greater transparency at the Fed comes out of an economic theory called rational expectations.
It said that markets will work better if the people in the markets know what to expect.
But Abalafia predicts it'll be tougher for the Fed to be transparent when it stops buying bonds and it faces political resistance to raising rates. In Washington, I'm David Gura for Marketplace.
Let's quickly check some numbers here. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures in the U.S. are all up at the moment. London's FT 100 is down 0.1%. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong rose 0.3%.
Marketplace covers the world of economics. Are you ready for some Freakonomics? We're partnering with the team that writes about the hidden side of everything for a regular Marketplace Freakonomics story, podcast, and more. Just go to Freakonomicsradio.com.
This weekend, Starbucks starts again with the red cups, holiday-themed paper cups full of eggnog, peppermint lattes, etc. Specialty drinks are the sort of upgrades that pour extra money into the pockets of Starbucks and its competitors. Shannon Mullen reports.
A Starbucks employee made the company's first eggnog latte in his home kitchen in 1986. Today, the company has more than 100 people doing flavor R&D. Starbucks spokeswoman Linda Mills.
Even right now, we're working on next year's holiday beverages, so it's always something that we're experimenting with.
No wonder. Starbucks' first quarter profit jumped 10% on the sale of specialty drinks last holiday season. Competitors, like Dunkin' Donuts, sell gingerbread lattes now, too.
There are some magic words in retailing. Limited item.
Purdue retail management professor Richard Feinberg says department stores can promote huge holiday inventories, but coffee shops just have coffee.
What they need to do is come up with special items to break the habit that consumers have of getting the same thing in the same way every single day.
Even if it's just putting plain coffee in a pretty red cup. I'm Shannon Mullen for Marketplace.
This Hallmark is selling a little tree ornament that looks like a knitted holiday sweater. Embroidered thereupon is a line from Deck the Halls, altered slightly. What it does not say is the traditional Don We Now Our Gay apparel. It says fun apparel instead of gay, and that has some people annoyed. Hallmark is standing by the thing, pointing to the word's original Gaelic meaning. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. p.m. American Public Media.
Meet the Pinto, just born. Pinto, the new little carefree car from Ford. Priced like a small economy import, but you'd never know to look at it. It's averaged over 25 miles per gallon in simulated city and suburban driving. But it's frisky, with a wider stance than any little import, so you won't be pushed around by the wind. With high-backed bucket seats in front and comfortable room all around. And Pinto's strong, built to run and run and run, with little servicing, little noise, little expense. Pinto, a little carefree car to put a little kick in your life. A little better idea from Ford, coming September 11th.
If you can't get it here at Coons Ford, then you just can't get it.
Obamacare by the numbers.
The first day, 6 enrollments occurred.
Cuts in food stamps.
My family struggles every day to make it.
Texas abortion restrictions.
1 in 3 Texas women will no longer have access to safe abortion services.
Good morning. I'm Steve Kathan with the CBS World News Roundup. It's been a month of misery for many who've tried to buy health insurance on the troubled Obamacare website. The administration has shied away from many specific numbers. But CBS's Cheryl Atkinson has seen internal war room notes from the days just after the site went live. They detailed a painfully slow start.
Publicly, the government said there were 4.7 million unique visits in the first 24 hours. But at a meeting Wednesday morning, the War Room notes say 6 enrollments have occurred so far. By Wednesday afternoon, enrollments were up to approximately 100. By the end of Wednesday, the notes reflect 248 enrollments nationwide.
I'm Barry Bagnotto in Washington. While the excitement on October 1st
this really means a lot to me to be able to sign up for health care
didn't translate into actual enrollees, the Obama administration says the numbers are rising significantly, but it hasn't yet provided an actual count of people such as Phil Sherburne of Salt Lake City who've successfully negotiated healthcare.gov.
I was ecstatic. Wow, I'm finally going to be insured.
Phil Leshevsky has had coverage.
I can tell you it's a Cadillac plan.
But he's among an estimated 3 million Americans being dropped because their plans don't meet new coverage requirements.
The closest policy offered on the exchange in my state cost me 66% more.
Many state websites are working fine. Correspondent Ben Tracy is in Seattle.
In the month since Washington State opened its healthcare exchange, 49,000 people have enrolled. Another 92,000 have started an application. Unlike the federal site, Washington State allows people to browse for plans without creating an account. The idea was to make it as simple as shopping on Amazon.com and not overwhelm the system with personal data.
For millions of Americans, it just got harder to put food on the table. Here's CBS's Bob Fuss.
A temporary boost in food stamps expires today and won't be extended. In fact, the debate in Congress is whether to cut it even more. House Republicans, led by Eric Cantor, say too many people get food stamps.
The reforms made by this bill will put people on the path to self-sufficiency.
Democrat Rosa DeLauro.
They want to take food out of the mouths of hungry men, women, and children all over America.
The debate is now in a House-Senate conference committee trying to come to agreement on a farm bill.
I'm Peter King in Orlando. Jennifer Ayala has been trying to feed her husband and 3 kids on just under $800 a month. Now it shrinks to just over $700.
Scared, nervous. Hopefully we'll be able to make it, but I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Orlando's Community Food and Outreach Center sells groceries to people like Jennifer for pennies on the dollar.
We are preparing for a whole new wave of families that are going to be affected because of these cutbacks.
Co-founder Scott George is afraid Congress will impose even deeper cuts.
I think their misconception is that these families are deadbeats, unwilling to work, living off the system.
When in reality, many like the Ayalas are working poor. Jennifer's husband makes the minimum at 2 or 3 jobs. She's been looking for months.
Right now, anything is a job, you know what I'm saying? Whatever pays the bills.
Peter King, CBS News, Orlando.
Now to Texas, where about a third of the state's abortion clinics will have to stop performing abortions. A federal appeals court gave the state the okay to enforce most of a tough new law. Here's reporter Jim Forsyth.
A panel of the Fifth Court of Appeals has upheld a law that requires all facilities performing abortions employ a doctor who has admitting privileges at a clinic within 30 miles. Kylene Wright of the Texas for Life Coalition says it's a victory for women's health.
Women are entitled to competent doctors.
Planned Parenthood says the fight for abortion rights is far from over.
We're still challenging this law vigorously, and what this ruling says is that the law can go into effect while we challenge it.
The court said Roe v. Wade said abortion has to be legal. It didn't say that an abortion has to be convenient. Jim Forsyth for CBS News, San Antonio.
From Texas to the Great Lakes and into the Appalachians, a deadly storm system triggered heavy rain, flooding, and power outages. 3 deaths are blamed from the high water in Texas, where some places got more than a foot of rain. In Austin, Rashada King rushed to her home where her kids were staying with relatives.
I didn't know what to think. I was like, I just started praying and crying, and I said, Father, just keep them safe.
They found safety on the roof and waited hours for a rescue. Almost 2 years after the departure of American combat troops in Iraq, the country's leader is in Washington, and he's looking for help.
Nouri al-Maliki is asking for helicopters and for faster delivery of military jets Iraq is buying. Through an interpreter, he says it's urgent to fight terrorists, killing hundreds of Iraqis each month.
Today, our suffering in Iraq are due to al-Qaeda.
The White House is leaning toward more help, though not sending U.S. troops back there. Spokesman Jay Carney.
We believe that continued assistance is necessary, and that denying that assistance would be contrary to our interests.
Dan Raviv, CBS News, Washington.
A new book says White House insiders did polling and other research in 2011 to see if putting Hillary Clinton on the ticket in place of Vice President Biden would help President Obama win re-election. William Daley is a former Obama chief of staff.
It was looked at, but it was never seriously looked at in the sense that there was a belief that it ought to be done or needed to be done.
New York City's upcoming mayoral election